Good evening. We begin with breaking news out of Roswell, Georgia. Cell phone video of a confrontation inside a neighborhood grocery store has been viewed millions of times online. Investigators say it started when a 67-year-old retired bus driver, a black man, asked a white shopper to move her cart. Good evening. We begin with breaking news out of Roswell, Georgia. Cell phone video from a neighborhood grocery store shows a confrontation between a 67-year-old retired bus driver and a 43-year-old woman that quickly turned violent. Why are you staring at me like that? You need to mind your own business. Ma'am, I wasn't staring. I'm just waiting my turn. That's all. Don't you think you can get away with anything? Hey, let's calm down, please. We can sort this out. It happened on an ordinary Saturday morning in Roswell, Georgia. The kind of day when people just want to get groceries, pay, and go home. But that morning, something happened that no one in line at that local Publix would ever forget. "Excuse me," came a calm, steady voice from behind a shopping cart. It was Harold Benson, 67 years old, gray hair tucked under a baseball cap. The kind of man everyone in the neighborhood waved to when he walked his dog. He'd been waiting patiently at the self-checkout, pushing his small cart of milk, bread, and fruit. Before he could even place his items on the counter, a woman stepped in front of him. Blonde ponytail, designer sunglasses perched on her head, her voice sharp as a knife. "I was here first," she snapped, not even looking at him. Harold smiled politely. "Ma'am, I think the attendant waved me forward." That should have been it, a misunderstanding. But something about his calm tone seemed to light a fire in her. "You people always think you can cut in," she hissed. The words landed heavy, shocking everyone nearby. A young mother gasped. The cashier froze mid-scan. Harold blinked, unsure he'd heard her right. "Excuse me?" She stepped closer, eyes flashing. "You heard me. You people think rules don't apply to you." A few phones came up, recording. Someone whispered, "She's losing it." Harold's heart thumped, not from fear but from disbelief. He'd driven city buses for 35 years, handled shouting passengers, rude teens, even fights on his route, but never something like this. "I'm just trying to pay for my groceries," he said quietly. "Don't play the victim," she spat, her voice rising. "You always do this, always acting like someone owes you respect." An older man nearby stepped forward. "Ma'am, please calm down." But Linda, that's what her name tag from work later revealed, didn't calm down. Instead, she shoved Harold's cart back. The wheel hit his shin, a can of soup toppled out, rolling under a shelf. The entire store went silent, except for the sound of a crying toddler in the next line. "Ma'am," said a store employee, approaching cautiously, "I need you to step back." She ignored him. "He cut in line, and now you're defending him. Of course you are." Harold didn't move. His hands trembled slightly as he picked up the fallen can. "You don't have to do this," he said softly. "It's not worth it." Her reply was a sneer. "Oh, so now you're the saint." Without warning, she grabbed a can from her own cart and threw it toward him. It missed, clattering loudly on the floor beside his foot. That was when the crowd reacted. "Whoa!" someone shouted. A man pulled out his phone, recording the scene. Another woman stepped in front of Harold. "Enough! You're assaulting him!" The store manager rushed out from an office near the front. "Call the police," he said firmly. Harold stood still, stunned, trying to steady his breathing. He wasn't a man who liked attention. His wife had always told him, "Harold, you've got the patience of a preacher." And he did. Even now, he refused to yell back. "Sir, are you hurt?" the manager asked. "No, just tired," Harold murmured. The woman, Linda Carrington, 43, kept shouting, even as others pulled her back. "You'll all see. This is ridiculous," she screamed. "He cut in line." By now, the sound of approaching sirens echoed faintly from outside. Someone had already uploaded the video to social media before the officers even arrived. When the police stepped in, Linda was still fuming. One officer gently took her arm, but she jerked away. "Get your hands off me! He's the problem, not me!" "Ma'am," said the officer calmly, "you need to stop talking and cooperate." She tried to twist out of his grip, but two more officers stepped in. "You're under arrest for assault and disorderly conduct," one said, as the cuffs clicked into place. The crowd clapped. Not loudly, but enough for Harold to hear the quiet wave of approval. He didn't smile, he didn't cheer. He just exhaled, shoulders sinking with relief and sadness all at once. As they led Linda outside, she kept shouting, "I didn't do anything wrong. He provoked me." The cameras followed her. The story was already spreading. A storm was brewing, and neither of them knew how far it would go. Harold rubbed his chin, looked down at his cart, and finally whispered to the manager, "Can I just pay and go home?" "Of course, sir," the manager said softly. "We're all so sorry this happened." As Harold walked toward the exit, people stepped aside, murmuring quiet words of support. He gave a small nod of thanks, though his eyes looked distant, as if trying to make sense of a world that still hadn't learned. Outside, the flashing lights faded as the patrol car pulled away. Harold stood by his car for a moment, hands on the cart handle, just breathing. He didn't feel victorious, just tired. Tired of moments like these that still had to happen. But as the video made its way online, what happened next would take everything to a level no one expected.
The store was still humming with disbelief when the officers led Linda Carrington out. The echo of her shouts faded down the aisle, replaced by the low murmur of people trying to make sense of what they just witnessed. Some were angry, some were shaken, but everyone felt the same thing, a deep, shared shock that something so ugly could happen over a grocery line. Harold Benson stood quietly beside the checkout, his hand resting on the cart handle. The store manager, a man named Dean Ortega, approached with careful steps. "Sir, do you want to sit down for a moment? We've got a bench in the office." Harold shook his head. "Nah, I'll be all right. I just didn't expect all that." Dean gave a sympathetic nod. "You handled yourself well, Mr. Benson, better than most would have." Harold gave a faint smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. After driving a bus in this city for 30 years, you learn not to lose your cool, but it still stings, you know? A young cashier nearby, maybe 19, whispered to a coworker, "Did you see her face when the cops walked in?" The other replied, "Yeah, she didn't even look scared, just angry." People kept whispering, their phones out, replaying the video they just recorded. In some clips, Harold looked like a man standing against a storm. In others, the focus was on Linda's rage. The words, the throw, the moment she was handcuffed, every detail was caught in full color. Harold finally pushed his cart forward, still wanting to finish what he came for. Dean insisted, "Please, sir, it's on the house. You've been through enough." "I appreciate that," Harold said, "but I'll pay. I don't want this to turn into something it's not." The manager didn't argue. He just helped bag the items himself, quietly, respectfully. As Harold left the store, a woman in her 50s approached him near the automatic doors. "Sir, I just want to say, what she did was wrong. You didn't deserve that." He nodded softly. "Thank you, ma'am. I just hope she learned something from it." The woman's eyes glistened. "We all should." Outside, the Georgia sun was bright, almost too bright. Harold placed his bags in the trunk, then leaned against the car door for a moment, trying to slow his breathing. His phone buzzed, a text from his granddaughter, Camille. "Grandpa, are you okay? I saw something on Twitter. Is that you in the video?" He stared at the screen, the words spinning in his mind. "Lord have mercy," he muttered under his breath. Across town, that same video was spreading like wildfire. Within an hour, it had been reposted thousands of times. News outlets picked it up. Headlines flashing, "Woman throws Kennett senior black man during racist rant in Georgia grocery store." Camille's phone was blowing up with messages from friends. She worked as a nurse at a local clinic, and everyone there was talking about it. She called Harold immediately. "Grandpa, please tell me you're okay." "I'm fine, baby," he said, voice low but steady. "Didn't get hit, just surprised, that's all." "Do you want me to come over?" No, don't drive all the way out here. I just need to rest." Camille hesitated. "They're saying her name's Linda Carrington. People are posting where she works. It's getting big, Grandpa." He sighed. "Yeah, I figured it might. But you know what, Camille? I don't want to add to the noise. I just want people to remember to stay kind, even when others don't. His words sounded calm, but inside something was twisting. For all his years of patience, it hurt to know that at his age, after decades of honest work, he could still be reduced to someone's stereotype in a split second. Back at the store, police were taking witness statements. Dean gave his account, describing Linda's aggression and the can she threw. A teenage boy who recorded the video showed officers the footage directly from his phone. "She kept yelling," he said, "and everyone told her to stop. He didn't do anything." The officer nodded. "This will help a lot. Thank you for coming forward." Meanwhile, outside in the parking lot, another officer spoke quietly with Harold before letting him go home. "Sir, if you need to file a report or press charges, you can contact us anytime, but we've already charged her with assault and a hate crime enhancement." Harold rubbed the back of his neck. "That's a lot to take in. I just wanted to stop." "I understand," said the officer, "but people like you make a difference. When you stay calm like that, you set an example." That night, Harold sat in his small living room, the evening news playing softly in the background. His wife's photograph sat framed beside the television, her smile steady and kind. "You'd tell me to let it go," he whispered to her picture. "But how many times do we have to keep letting it go?" He switched the channel, but it didn't matter. The story was everywhere. The video, the arrest, the hashtags. His name wasn't in the reports yet, but people were already calling him the man from aisle 7.
He chuckled bitterly. All those years driving people home, and now I'm famous for buying milk. Camille called again before bed. "Grandpa, promise me you won't read the comments online." "I won't," he said, even though he already had. The comments were a mix of outrage and ignorance. Some defending him, others trying to justify Linda's behavior. But what struck him most were the strangers who wrote, "That could have been my grandfather." Harold turned off the TV, still by the window, and looked out at the quiet street. He felt the weight of it, not just what happened to him, but what it meant. Somewhere out there, people were learning, talking, changing. Maybe not enough, but it was a start. But as the video gained millions of views overnight, the story stopped being just about him and started becoming something much bigger. By sunrise the next morning, Harold Benson's quiet neighborhood in Roswell had no idea that one of its residents had become the center of a national storm. The video of the grocery store incident had gone viral. Millions of views, hundreds of thousands of shares, and endless arguments in the comments. On Twitter, people demanded justice. On Facebook, debates flared up between friends and family members. And on TikTok, teenagers were reenacting the scene, mouthing the words she screamed. "Linda Carrington," one post read, "the woman who threw a can at a 67-year-old man for standing in line." Her photo, pulled from her company's website, was plastered across every social feed. The internet had decided she was the face of hate for the weak. Harold, however, had no interest in fame. He was sitting in his recliner, phone buzzing nonstop, trying to drink his morning coffee in peace. "Grandpa," said Camille, who had driven over early, "you're trending on Twitter. I'm serious, you're everywhere." He groaned softly. "That's not something I ever wanted to hear." Camille showed him the screen. There he was, frozen mid-sentence, calm and quiet, while Linda's face twisted in anger across from him. The video had been slowed down, captioned, analyzed, and turned into 1,000 memes. One clip had even been paired with gospel music, with text reading, "Grace under pressure." "She's already been fired," Camille added. "Her company made a statement this morning. They said they don't tolerate discrimination." Harold stared at the screen for a long moment. "I didn't want that for her." "She threw a can at you, Grandpa," Camille said, exasperated. "You could have been hurt. Don't feel sorry for her." "I don't feel sorry," he said quietly. "I just don't like seeing anybody torn apart like that, even if they earned it." Across town, Linda sat in her small apartment, blinds drawn, phone ringing nonstop. Her mother had left 3 voicemails. Her boss had called twice before emailing her termination letter. The words, "Your behavior violates company policy," hit harder than she expected.
She tossed her phone onto the couch and muttered, "They don't even know the full story." But deep down, she knew there was no story that could excuse what she said. The video didn't lie. Every word, every gesture, it was all there, replayed a million times. Her doorbell rang. When she looked through the peephole, two reporters stood outside with microphones. She didn't answer. They left business cards instead, sliding them under the door. Meanwhile, Harold's phone kept ringing too, not just from family, but from reporters, local news anchors, and strangers who wanted to thank him.
One call came from Channel 5 Atlanta. "Mr. Benson, this is Claire Morales from WAGA-TV. We'd love to interview you about what happened. You've inspired a lot of people." He hesitated. "I'm not looking to inspire anyone. I just want to be left alone." Claire's tone softened. "I understand, but your story is giving people hope. You showed restraint when you didn't have to. That matters." Harold paused, rubbing the back of his neck. "Hope's a funny thing, ma'am. People find it in moments they shouldn't have to." That night, Camille scrolled through her feed, watching the comments pour in. "Look at this one," she said, showing him a post. "If more people handled hate like Mr. Benson, the world would be a better place." He smiled faintly. "That's kind, but they don't know me. I just didn't want to give her more to yell about." "You did the right thing," Camille insisted. "Everyone can see that." But Harold wasn't so sure. He couldn't stop thinking about how quickly it all escalated, how a moment of rudeness had turned into something ugly enough to define two people's lives overnight. Later that evening, a news van parked outside his street. A reporter knocked on his door, microphone in hand. "Mr. Benson, can we ask how you feel about the arrest?" He opened the door just a crack. "Ma'am, I've got nothing more to say than what's already in that video." She nodded, respecting his quiet refusal, and left. Inside, Camille said softly, "You know, Grandpa, you could use this to speak up. People are listening." He leaned back in his chair. "Maybe someday. But right now, I'm just tired of hearing my name attached to something ugly." Meanwhile, Linda's story was spinning out of her control. Her social media accounts were flooded with threats and insults. Strangers called her job, her church, even her neighbors. She'd lost everything in less than 48 hours. Her sister Megan came by with groceries and found her crying at the kitchen table. "You messed up, Lynn. You really messed up." "I know," Linda whispered. "But does one mistake have to end my life?" Megan sighed. "It's not just one mistake. It's what you said, how you said it. You've got to take responsibility." Linda buried her face in her hands. "I can't even go outside. They're calling me a monster." Megan placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then prove you're not. Start by apologizing. Not online, not through some lawyer. Face him." The next morning, Linda's attorney called to tell her she'd been officially charged. She listened, silent, as he read the charges: assault, public disturbance, and hate crime enhancement. "Do you have anything to say?" he asked. Linda took a deep breath. "Yeah, I deserve what's coming." While her world fell apart, Harold tried to move on. But every store visit, every walk in the park came with whispers and recognition. People thanked him, hugged him, called him brave. Yet every time they did, he felt the same ache in his chest. He didn't feel brave. He felt tired. Tired of being reminded that something so simple as standing in line could turn into a national story. But soon, neither Harold nor Linda could avoid what was next, the reckoning that would bring them face to face. The air outside the Fulton County Courthouse felt heavy that morning. News vans lined the curb, their satellite dishes pointed skyward. Reporters rehearsing lines under bright lights. Inside,
The halls echoed with footsteps and hushed voices. Everyone seemed to know what case was on the docket. State of Georgia versus Linda Carrington. Harold Benson walked through the double doors wearing his best gray suit. It wasn't new, but it was pressed and clean. The same one he'd worn to his granddaughter's graduation. Camille walked beside him, clutching her purse tightly. "You don't have to do this, Grandpa," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "I know, but if I don't show up, what kind of example would that set?"
Cameras flashed the moment they stepped into the hallway. A reporter called out, "Mr. Benson, how do you feel about seeing her again?" He didn't stop walking. "I'm here to let the law do what it's supposed to do," he said calmly. Across the hall, Linda Carrington sat on a bench, staring down at her folded hands. The week had carved deep lines into her face. She wore a simple navy dress, her hair tied back. Her lawyer, Samuel Duran, leaned in and whispered something. She didn't seem to hear. When she finally looked up, her eyes met Harold's from across the room. For a second, both froze. Then she looked away, guilt washing over her like a wave. Inside the courtroom, Judge Margaret Ellis presided with quiet authority. The atmosphere was tense but restrained. Rows of spectators filled the benches, journalists, locals, even a few people from Harold's neighborhood who had come to show support. "Court is now in session," the bailiff announced. The prosecutor began by playing the video, the same one millions had already seen online. The sound of Linda's voice shouting echoed through the courtroom. "You people always think you can cut in." It was like watching a wound reopen. Linda flinched, tears welling in her eyes. Harold looked down, jaw tight but calm. When the video ended, the prosecutor turned to the judge. "Your Honor, this case is not about a misunderstanding in a grocery store. It's about public hate, targeted aggression, and the humiliation of an innocent man." Samuel Duran rose next. "Your Honor, Miss Carrington has already faced public backlash beyond what any court could deliver. She lost her job, her reputation, and she's received hundreds of threats. She acknowledges what she did was wrong and deeply regrets her words and actions. We're asking for leniency, for the chance to make amends." Judge Ellis nodded. "We'll hear from the victim now." The room fell silent. Harold rose slowly and made his way to the stand. Camille squeezed his hand as he passed. He took a deep breath. "Your Honor," he began softly, "I've seen a lot in my life. I've seen kindness and I've seen cruelty. But that day at the grocery store, it wasn't just about one woman losing her temper. It was about what still lives in people's hearts when they think no one's watching." He paused, glancing toward Linda, who sat frozen. "I don't hate her. I never did. I just want her and everyone watching to understand that words like that cut deep. They don't fade. And when you throw something at a person because of who they are, you're throwing away your own humanity too." The room stayed silent for several seconds after he finished. Even Judge Ellis seemed moved. "Thank you, Mr. Benson. You may step down."